Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mysteries and Oddities video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one yet again based on one of your new suggestions. This one having to do with a fascinating case of some particular rainstorms that have apparently brought some fish to a location there in Honduras. In fact, some of the mystery associated with it is obviously how these fish arrived. They almost seem to fall from the sky itself, almost as if the rain itself is providing food or subsistence to the people. Now, there are some theories that are more realistic, like when it comes to it just being either a natural phenomenon or some other type of occurrence that is causing this. But then there's also more of the spiritual side, and I'll cover both items here. But in fact, you're looking at a picture of it now. It has a unique name, at least initially it's Spanish, and in Spanish it goes by Lluvia de peces, but in English it basically translates to rain of fish. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this very, very unique phenomenon, and then I'll present both sides, and then I'd love to hear what your thoughts are as to which one you truly believe is the cause of it. So essentially, this is what this is. Lluvia de peces is a phenomenon that has been occurring there at a place called Lloro, Honduras, since at least, best guess, the early 1800s. There's no exact timeline, like when it comes to like when it first started, like the exact year, but early 1800s is the best ballpark area, and in particular, it happens during the months of May or June on a yearly basis. In fact, if you wanted to go there during that time period there in your Honduras, May or June, you may have a chance of seeing it happen right then and there for you, which would be pretty interesting considering it's a very unique phenomenon. But here's essentially what it is. There's a annual rainstorm that comes in, a very, very heavy storm, and when that happens, if you cut to a little bit afterward, that's when people say that fish have fallen from the sky. Now, I couldn't quite get 100% proof if people actually see the fish fall from the sky itself. Somebody might have to let me know, especially if you're there within your Honduras. Maybe you have a chance to have seen it or know someone that has. Let me know. But the idea is, yes, they're falling from the sky itself, and once they land, obviously it litters the entire areas there, the streets, with food. So essentially it's almost like food from the sky itself, and it's very, very beneficial there. The locals absolutely love it. In fact, they have a parade, they have carnivals and festivals. It tries to coincide with the first major rainfall during that time period, because again, it's a great chance for everyone there to be able to get all this free food and then enjoy it for who knows how long afterwards. So interesting stuff. The fish itself might sometimes be alive, or they may sometimes be dead. In fact, I was reading in one article that people sometimes see them flapping around, like basically trying to get back to whatever type of watery destination they can. But that's essentially what this rain of fish is. It's coming from a massive rainstorm, and then that's when hundreds, if not thousands, of these silvery fishes fall from the sky onto the small town itself. Now, as far as how this could happen, here's some of the more natural occurrences with it. Number one is this, and it ties into actually a volcanic eruption. Apparently back in 1698, there was the volcanic eruption of Mount Carrihuarazo. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Mount Carrihuarazo. And it was said that during this time period, the explosion was so strong that it must have unleashed something involving an underground lake. And when that happened, that's when there was mud, and that's when there was fish covering the area. This kind of comes into play later on, because the idea is afterward, once things subsided, the fish themselves, all these new lakes, little mini lakes and bodies of water and so on, maybe even other connections associated to those underground watery caves, all those fish were now in new areas, and they've been there ever since. And then that's why every single time that there's a large rainstorm, it could actually pick up parts of the fish themselves, which ties into another phenomenon, and that's this water sprouts, which you're looking at here. They could be very large ones, they could be small ones, but the idea is that these water sprouts help get these fish from their locations, and then they just travel about. These poor fish have no choice, obviously, with these strong winds picking them up. But when that happens, they just happen to go by that city of Yoro, and then they land there, and then that's where they come from, the sky itself. Another thing is this. It could actually be where it's more along the lines of heavy rains. That heavy rainstorm that happens brings up lots of water, and obviously the water now becomes some type of not like a river, but essentially it's a very large bodies of water, almost like a flood, that is now starting to fill the streets. Well, throughout the calamity, the notion is the fish are also being brought from all those caves, from all those streams, everything else that was created nearby the area, and then when from that volcanic eruption, and then when that happens and the floods subside, then these fish are left over. That's why I was saying earlier, there's not like really 100% proof of people like seeing like a bunch of fish, thousands of fish falling from the sky. Because if it's tied instead to these floods, that makes much more sense. Obviously, like there would be flash floods and there would be large amounts of body of water moving. There's going to be fish in them. And so when that happens, then and the floods subside, then they'll remain there within the streets themselves. So those are at least some of the more natural occurrences associated with it. One is just involving volcanic eruption leading to nearby small lakes and other types of caves, like watery underground caves, and then you have the water sprouts helping bring them about, and then you have the actual rainstorms and the floods themselves. Now, more on the spiritual side is this. Also in the 1800s, there was a father by the name of Father Jose Manuel de Jesus Subirana, who arrived there in Honduras to be able to start preaching there. In fact, he arrived in 1855. And what had happened, or at least the legend goes, he saw how poor that area was. He saw how the people there were essentially without food and they were starving. And so for 3 days straight, he prayed, and then also 3 nights as well, he prayed, asking for a miracle. And when that happened, suddenly that's when the skies started having these rainstorms associated with these fishes, these Lluvia de peces. And so when that happened, obviously this was a big treat to the people. Now the starving people were able to feed, and it's been considered, this legend at least, that he helped create it. Like it was more of a divine thing. And then when that occurred, it's been happening on an annual basis ever since then. So at least that's that particular angle as well. By the way, there was some teams, in fact, National Geographic team went there and they were able to see some of the phenomenon associated with those fishes. They witnessed the event itself. And then I imagine that that there's probably going to be other expeditions to try to do it as well. But my angle is more on the lines of it's more of a natural phenomenon. I think more of the water sprouts and a combination of the floods themselves. There's bound to be that stuff. Whereas, as far as the fish itself, but what is interesting and kind of perplexing at the same time is apparently these fish are not local per se. Like some of the fish are actually found more than 200 kilometers away. So the idea that they could be traveling that far away, hard to gauge, right? There's bound to be something else explaining it. But at the same time, how can that be? How could there be something more than 200 kilometers away now within this area, no water sprout and no floods really carry that type of trek across 200 kilometers? So who knows? That just remains more up in the air. But if anybody has any more info, especially on a local level, maybe somebody there from Honduras and has more info there, I'd love to hear what your comments are there too. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.